Okay, so on my last SSTO video, which was the Reddit challenge VTOL asymmetrical SSTO challenge, my god, that was a really horrible way of wording that, but yeah, I left a comment saying if anyone was interested in me making a commentary track explaining how I flew that SSTO into orbit, the trajectories and when to fire at the rapiers and things, let me know. And I got quite a lot of comments actually saying that that is something that people would like to see. So consider this video sort of trial. If this is well received, I might consider doing commentary tracks more often or make them a regular thing, or whether if this goes disastrously then maybe people would just rather see my musical style of videos with the white text showing my inner thoughts and just the more funny ones. So yeah, let me know below what you think of this style of video, but for now let's look at what's happening. So originally I said I was going to do my asymmetrical VTOL SSTO, but I thought whilst that was kind of cool in the sense that it was asymmetrical and it was a Reddit challenge and it was a VTOL, it wasn't really that useful. All it could really do was sort of nurse its way into orbit and then circularize and then decelerate and land. That's all it could do. It couldn't carry Kerbals into space. Well, it could carry one, but it couldn't carry a crew into space. It couldn't carry cargo. It couldn't launch a probe. So it wasn't really that impressive. So this one here is something a bit more ambitious. It's a cargo SSTO that can land on the surface of Minmus, deploy some cargo, and then take off from the surface of Minmus. So in this video I'm using a little rover, but you could do this with any kind of light load really. But I really just wanted to do this to prove that SSTOs are still possible, albeit just a lot harder. They became nigh on impossible since the 1.0 update, so yeah. Oh, we seem to have missed the entire flight plan whilst I was talking about the introduction of this video. Well, I'll just talk about it quickly. Basically, I ascended at about 30 degrees and I kind of stuck at about that all the way to 120,000 meters. And from there I did a little nosedive, which seemed counterintuitive. You probably noticed it at first because you end up losing a lot of height, but it's really to build up as much acceleration as possible. It's kind of like a power bomb maneuver really. You want to try and build up as much acceleration as possible because the rapiers don't kick in until you get to about 420 meters per second. So as soon as I got to that threshold, the rapiers suddenly activated and the rockets, they sort of fired up and I could point the nose upwards again and really get a lot of speed up, and that's really important. You want to try and get as much of your orbital acceleration done with just the air breathing rapiers because they're much more efficient than anything else in the game apart from obviously the other jet engines. But yeah, and then obviously when you get to a certain height the nuclear engine can kick in because its ISP is about 780 by the time the rapiers flame out. So yeah, as you probably noticed by now, the bulk of this flight is done with the nuclear engine just because it's so efficient and it only uses liquid fuel, so you have to worry about carrying lots of heavy oxidizer. A lot of people have said that the nuclear engine has actually been nerfed to the point of being basically useless now because it's much heavier than it was, and actually that's about it, and obviously it's useless in an atmosphere. But these, I don't know, I disagree because although it's really heavy, if you can nurse it into orbit you can do so much more with it. It's like the other engines, once you get to about, is it 1.2 tons? At one point there's a point where the nuclear engine becomes the most efficient engine above everything else, and I think it's about 1.2 tons. Below that you probably are better off using a chemical rocket. But yeah. Oh, so we are actually at Minmus now. I've not really been looking at the screen, to be honest. I've been staring at the ceiling. But yeah, we're landing at Minmus now. I tried doing a little suicide burn. I didn't use Kerbal Engineer because I'm still not sure at all how you use the suicide burn indicator on that. So I just kind of did it through guesswork. I kind of almost did it perfectly. I finished up a little bit too high, so I let it fall and then did some small burns just to lower my speed towards the end, and then we can just flip over and boom, there we go. I actually mapped the brakes of the wheels to an action group because the air brakes on the bottom of the plane would hit the ground if I used the normal thing. So there we go. We have the rover deployed and that's it there, and it's really ugly, to be honest. It's not the most practical rover in the world, to be honest. It's got a really high centre of mass, so it kind of has a tendency to flip over, but really I just built it in about 2 minutes just to kind of showcase the actual SSTO itself. Probably could have put a bit more thought into it if I tried, but yeah, there it is. We've got some science kit on there, and we'll rename it Brian. That is the best name for a Minmus rover, so there we go. It's actually completely pointless in this game because this is my sandbox save where I just design ships. Basically, I have 2 save games. Well, I have loads, but the two I play the most are a career save and a sandbox save. And basically, before I want to build anything in the career mode, I'll try it out in sandbox mode, and then there's no consequences then if it all explodes or whatever. You haven't lost any funds or reputation or anything, because you can do that, and then I'll just copy the craft file into my career save and then fly it from there. So I consider it kind of like a simulator. So yeah, here we are. So as you know, no landing in KSP is official unless you plant a flag. So there's Jebediah planting a flag, and we're just going to cut in a minute. Yeah, there we go. Just because I was faffing around trying to get a nice picture for the thumbnail of this video, and I thought you wouldn't even watch the camera moving around for about 5 minutes. So here we go. We're just trying to kick up the front of the plane as much as possible, then fire up the engine, and then we can take off vertically. I didn't really want to bother putting monopropellant engines on or anything at the front, just to try and stand it up, because it doesn't really require that much more delta V to just take off like a plane, and taking off like a plane looks much cooler than anything else. So you know, there's that for it as well. So here we go. We're just going to start burning with our nuclear engine now, just to try and get an escape velocity from Minmus. The reason I time warped earlier was just to try and get the moon to rotate in such a way that I could just burn straight up and curve around, and I wouldn't have to bother circularizing. I could just basically do it in one burn. So there was that, and now originally I wanted to try and land at the Kerbal Space Center, so I'm going to try and do an aero capture maneuver just to try and reduce my apoapsis. There's probably a way of calculating how to land exactly at the KSC without having to do this, but I am not talented enough for that. So here we go. I'm just doing a retrograde burn just to lower my periapsis. For those of you who don't really know what an aero capture is, it's basically where you lower your periapsis into the atmosphere of a planet that has an atmosphere, and as you pass through the atmosphere you'll burn off loads and loads of speed, and that will drop your apoapsis without having to use any fuel. They're much harder post 1.0 just because of the whole re-entry heat thing, but luckily this plane did not overheat. Spoiler alert, maybe, is that, why would that be a spoiler? I don't know, I'm just rambling here. So there we are, these nice meteor things, those temperature gauges, which I know someone's going to comment saying I should turn them off because of the memory leak. I'm not denying that the memory leak exists, but I have never ever personally witnessed this memory leak of the temperature gauges causing the game to crash, so I don't know, I just leave them on. But if I ever got to the point where they started causing the game to crash, I'll turn them off, but for now I have no reason to. So yeah, I just quick loaded there because I crashed the plane on re-entry. So don't do that, but here we go. I actually didn't do a very good job here because my trajectory now lands me in the sea. But luckily I have some liquid fuel left over, so I could use the Rapier engines just to try and correct my course, and oop, yeah, a bit of a bleb there. That was just try and keep, when you're re-entering a space plane, just try and keep yourself on the prograde marker, because otherwise you'll just start flipping around at those high speeds. And I find that having these aero brakes kind of radially mounted is the best way of having it. Make sure you have them near the back as well. One thing with the nuclear engine, the biggest problem with space planes for me is that nuclear engine is just so heavy. It's really hard to get enough speed up, and when you come in, oftentimes the plane will want to spin around and flip and do all this crazy stuff because the nuclear engine is so heavy at the back and there's no more fuel in it, so there's nothing really to balance that. That's why the back of this plane has that sort of tail fin at the back that hangs over the back of the nuclear engine just to keep it stable. This is actually the second time of me recording this, because the first video I made of this, it didn't have that thing at the back. It had just two winglets on the back, and the plane just couldn't re-enter without crashing, so I reshot the whole thing, and here we go. We're landing now. We've got those aero brakes deployed, but we need to retract them before finally touching down, as the bottom one goes lower than the wheels extend. So there we go, we have landed. So yeah, let me know in the comments below if this is the sort of video that you'd like to see more. They might not necessarily replace my music videos, but I don't know, if this is something that people want to see, this could be the direction that my channel takes. We're still quite young. And that's the video. So I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, there we are. And as always, fly. I'm not going to do that. I can't do a Scottish accent. That was just racist.